Welcome to an emergency session of the Casual Watch Talk podcast. Sam has uploaded a controversial video, and I'm here to grab him and get him to answer some questions that I have and some questions that you have. And we'll, I think, call this, Sam, 11E, 11B.
Yes, very dramatic intro there. But yeah, you're right. I uploaded the reason why I sold my Omega Speedmaster on YouTube last night. I know we've been talking about it on the podcast for a while, but it did sell. It's with its new buyer, and he uploaded a video with the reasons why I sold it, and it's caused a little bit of a stir. Overwhelmingly positive comments, though.
Yeah, I think so. I was looking at the comments as they sort of rolled in, and I said maybe we should get together. You mentioned the podcast in the video. Maybe we should get together and kind of expand on some of the comments and some of the concepts that you sort of hit. But surprisingly, overwhelming behind you. Your team's behind you.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you everyone that watched and also took the time to comment on the upload. I had my reasons in three main buckets of the reasons why I sold it. I think from the comments, people are very understanding of the first reason why I sold it, which was that basically it wasn't getting a lot of wrist time. But the other two points I made probably got the most comments, I would say.
You mentioned Omega's sort of upward momentum of prices. I was thinking about that. You mentioned a couple of models that sort of stunned me of that MSRP price, where I can think of maybe 5 years ago, in my mind, being able to walk into an Omega boutique with, $2,500, $3,000 and pick up a Speedmaster. I know those prices have been going up, and I was sort of stunned to see how high they've come.
I gave 3 examples in the upload, and I'll give some more on this podcast, so I'm not just regurgitating what I made in the podcast. But I think what spurred it for me was the James Bond Seamaster, the titanium one. I just think it's outrageous, that, quite honestly. I know there's people that just specifically collect James Bond watches, and sure, they've been creeping up in price, but, close to 10 grand after tax for a titanium watch. And a commenter did make reference that in the upload, I said that it didn't come with a bracelet, a titanium bracelet. It does come with a titanium mesh strap. But what do you think? I mean, this thing looks like it's $20 off Amazon, this titanium mesh.
It doesn't look like it costs, for sure.
No, and with it being titanium, that thing is going to rub up against the lugs. I would take that. If I owned that watch, I would just take the strap off straight away. Because it's going to scratch, those mesh straps scratch the lin side of the lugs. And I made another reference to the 321 movement. I'm sure we can talk about that. And of course, this $48,000 almost full titanium Aquaterra. I just can't fathom what they're doing. I mean, the Aquaterra, you could argue, is more of an art piece, and they were just trying something different, and it probably cost them millions of dollars to make a titanium movement. But who's asking for that? I mean,
right. And you bring up a good point, and I think a couple of commenters in the comments mentioned, watch brands, yes, they do need to experiment. They do need to branch out and try, interesting, crazy things. I mean, I can think of, off the top of my head, 5-6 brands. For me, like Bell & Ross, they make these crazy all sapphire case. They did that laughing skull. That's just, I mean, it looks like a Halloween toy, sort of, for this watch. But in that same vein, I think that there's always room for experimentation. But I think that Omega is really doing more there, and there's some talk about some of their core products being discontinued now. The word on the street is the Mark II is going away. There's some other rumors that your regular Speedmaster is going to change. So to remove those core watches and not give a $2,700, $3,000, $3,500 replacement of in staying in the same market, moving up market, I feel like that's kind of what you're hitting at.
You're totally right. Watch companies experimenting with things is definitely a thing to be promoted. I mean, as soon as you said that, I thought of the Ulysses Nadan, the Freak collection, which has that incredible, incredible sort of tourbillon type escapement on the hands itself.
Right.
Incredible.
Where the movement, if you haven't seen it, the movement is basically the hour hand and the minute hand. I mean, the whole thing rotates. It's fantastic to look at. It is incredible, but in the same vein, it is something that, that they're trying.
Yeah. But what my main kind of topic here, or my main explanation was here, is you're taking Omega, which is a luxury tool watch. NASA picked it because it was a proven technology, a proven test watch, an instrument for telling the time, and you're taking these core models that the fans have been looking forward to, the 321, the new James Bond Seamaster, and you're just racking up the price on the standard base models. I mentioned about the 321 in the video, the platinum version that came out the blocks at 60 grand in platinum, and I made reference to a steel version. Yeah, there's a steel version, but that's $14,000. Disclaimer: both you and I love Omega.
Yep.
The Speedmaster used to be that watch that watch collectors saved for. It was an achievable goal. One of the most historically significant chronographs that you could actually own. And now they're pushing it further and further and further away from people's grasps. And to be brutally honest, they're pricing themselves as Rolex, but an Omega at this stage, I don't think would get anywhere near the return that Rolex would get. It's not going to climb up in price. In fact, it's going to decrease in price in the short term, and you're probably not going to be able. Not that you might not want to sell it, but if you had to liquidate a watch fast because something happened, you want to know that the money you're putting into it, you could get it back. And I think that some of these ridiculous prices, $48,000 for that titanium watch, that will. I mean, how many years do you think you're going to have to hang on to that for it to get back up to 48?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look right now, you go to a gray market seller, you go to Joma Shop, you're seeing. I'm looking at Omega's lineup. Well, yes, the retail is $4,900. Well, if I can get a 2019 model on Joma Shop right now for $3,700, then that tells you everything you need to know. If you're in Rolex land, and you mention them, for as much as they play with precious metals, for as much as they are upmarket, they are sort of the definition there. The Submariner looks like the Submariner. They've incrementally made it better. And yes, the price has gone up, but I don't think that radically happened in the amount of time that maybe Omega is shooting for here. I mean, it looks like they're just, within 4 or 5 years, we went from that attainable, like you said, that attainable tool watch that is a staple of your collection, to something where it's like, well, for $15,000, yeah, look someplace else. Look for other stuff that gives you joy. And I think you nailed it when you said that the stuff that's in the $1,000 market now is so good that it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give another example, and I don't think we've ever discussed this, Chris, but when I bought my Tudor, originally we went in the watch shop because some friends of ours, he was looking for a nice watch for his wife, and we were trying on all different models, and she really likes that small seconds minimalist type dial, the sort of Dirty Dozens type watch. And
right.
Omega, this flew under the radar, but Omega have a Seamaster 1948. I believe it was released last year. Jen just called this exactly what Jen wanted. And they want for this watch nearly $7,000. It's a very simple watch. And I said to her, Jen, let me try and find you an original one of these Omegas. Let me try and find you a vintage model, because I honestly can't in good conscience say that watch is worth the money. And when we went back, this was in Las Vegas, and when we went back to Las Vegas 4 or 5 months later, they still had that watch in the shop, and they were offering money off it and everything. And I said, look, just let me find. In fact, we were looking at Longines. In the end, and I made reference to this in the video, in the end, I managed to show her and my favourite brand at the moment, which is Tudor. And Jen ended up buying a Tudor for a very reasonable price, 2-tone gold Tudor with diamonds on the indices, fraction of the price. It was pre-owned, and I would encourage anyone to, if you're thinking of Omega, I would say look for pre-owned, to be quite honest. Bob's Watches is a great place to look.
Breitling seems to fall a little bit in this camp. We talked about it before, where you see the Super Ocean Heritage that came out, super nice stress diver. Don't pay retail for that because they're not gonna maintain. And if you can get it on sale, you can get it discounted. You can pick it up used, something like that. But the key there with Tudor, I think, is, Tudor with their Black Bay and with their models out now, it is let them eat cake. They are doing what people want. They are giving people the sizes they want, the models they want, the variation. And I don't think that you'd have, I don't think that any watch, even early, even super aficionados, I don't think you could have an argument that the quality of a Tudor is anything less than the quality of Omega, Rolex. We're in the same level here.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I forgot to mention this 1948 for the princely sum of $6,900 came with Hesalite on it as well. And I told Jen that, I said, look, this is going to drive you mad with the Hesalite. I couldn't agree more with Tudor. And I don't want people to think that I'm beating up on Omega, because I do love the Omega brand. The problem is when they have these watches and they push the prices further and further up. At the moment, and I don't know whether I'll get much argument to this, and maybe I will, we're in a watch bubble. And I think... Yeah. I think just now, we've seen it this week with the advent of the coronavirus. If the Asian markets stop buying Omega, and we saw it this week when the stock market lost a lot of its value. Swatch Group was the first stock to go down, and it went down more than Richemont, LVMH. We talked about it on the podcast. Omega will seriously tarnish its brand, I think, if it doesn't offer these affordable luxury watches. Because
it has to. Right. At the end of the day, when something like this happens, they have to move the product. They have to get the watches out the door.
And maybe we'll see what happens with the Omega boutiques, what happened with the Rolex boutiques, where they'll be kind of stuck with stock that, date justs that they can't sell.
Right. Yeah, these $48,000 titanium that they have that Omega's not going to take back, and it's not going to, and then you get into this tough spot where they put the boutiques in a tough spot. So
yeah, absolutely. So I think that's been a kind of a that was point 3. My point 2 was where I just explained that I had the watch serviced and it really took the shine off me. I suppose some of the funniest comments I've had. A few people made reference to the fact that I got married in this watch and was asking.
I did. I thought about that as well. It was actually that I made that same point when you first said it a couple of podcasts ago.
Well, I was joking with one of the commenters because they were asking whether my wife would be upset, and I was joking. I'd eased her into it over time because I've never consistently worn my wedding ring, so I've eased her into it.
Right, and the watch. And another comment that I saw, and another sort of point you had, and I had an analogy that I was thinking about is you had this for 12 years, and you'd fallen out of love with it. You know, it was sitting in the box. And then what really did it was you had it serviced, and now you were just reluctant to make new memories with something that is in such a good shape that you can get some money for it, but pass it on because you weren't considering wearing it, and then you got it serviced, and then it really sort of changed your outlook, and like you said, all those other points. And I think about it like, I had the fun sports car in my 20s. I had the Subaru WRX. And if you asked me today to drive around a Subaru WRX, I would pass. I wouldn't do it. And it's a fun car. And I certainly wouldn't drive around a 2002 WRX. I had a great time with it, but you had those memories. You had a good time with it. It was part of your everyday. It was part of your repertoire. It was what was on your wrist when you did those things. But now you've evolved. You've matured, and it's time to wear something else, drive something else, and that's okay.
I totally agree with that, obviously, because I'm the one that sold it. And a couple of people have made reference to the fact that I'll probably regret selling it. Honestly, I mean, it's possible. I have so far never regretted selling a watch, except that one that we joke about, that I sold it when the market was down for the watch, and I wish I could have sold it for more. So far, I've never regretted selling a watch. I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I try and live quite minimalist anyway, and I've got plenty of photos of the watch. My memories of the watch will suffice with photographs, etc. I'm not, I'm pretty sure I won't regret it.
And as a collector, I appreciate, and I think others should appreciate the person. I think one of the things in collecting we talk about is that the 1 watch collection, the 3 watch collection. So the guys that can pare down to 3 watches, which I think you're right around, you're at around like 3-4 watches. That's it.
Well, with the exception of the ones that are the true keepers in the collection, and that's the ones that I inherited from my grandfathers and also my father-in-law, who sadly passed away.
But I mean, as far as the never sells, the always keep, I get it, but the current everyday carry, the current everyday wear. To get down to 2 or 3, I mean, I've been collecting long enough to think like, geez, I don't, if I could just go back to wearing that 1 or wearing those 2 or that, that sort of thing. So that courage to do that, good on you.
And I look forward to more comments on the video. Keep them coming. I'm glad that I've had such an overwhelming response to it. So thanks everyone that watched and commented. So that was a very quick emergency podcast. Thank you for listening. If you're new to the podcast, Chris and I do a weekly upload. So this we'll call episode 11B. So far we've done 11 episodes. You can subscribe to it on iTunes, on your favourite podcasting app. As always, if you've got any comments, head on over to the Facebook group, leave us a message, leave us a question. As always, we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.